Hey guys. So this is day one of full-time business owner. Um, I got made redundant last week and I've been building up this for the past 2 years, making bone broth, for those of you that don't know. Yeah, last week I was made redundant. I had this cushy little number that was seeing me through as I was building up the business. And the joys of AI have made me redundant because they've made my role so efficient that they don't need me anymore. So I got made redundant last week, and I feel as though it's this sort of opening from the universe to crack on with Asthi now. So Asthi is the name of my bone broth business. It stems from being out in India a couple of years ago, and I travelled around, did my yoga training, and bumped into a couple of girls who had created their own brand selling kombucha. And they put me onto this nutritional therapy course, which I did. And it was during the course that I found out about bone broth. And I started making it for myself, and then started talking to people about it, and they were like, "Oh, I've heard of it," or "I drink it," blah blah blah. And then I started making it for friends and family. I called it my underground broth from the static home that I live in. And then it got to a point where I was like, this is ridiculous because my kitchen and my oven is being annihilated, and I need to, or perhaps there is an opportunity here for me to start a business, because at the time I was teaching yoga, which was great, but I was also working for an immigration law firm, um, which was a bit of a startup, and I enjoyed, but I got made redundant from that. So it's not my first rodeo. And and then I picked up the medical secretary job, but I knew it wasn't something that I wanted to do forever, and it was just going to keep me ticking over, keep the bills paid, pay for a bit here and there, and started getting a bit of a entrepreneurial spirit in me. Something for myself. Didn't want to work for someone. Didn't want to be beholden to someone. And that definitely comes with its benefits, but it's just not where I want to be now. I also don't think that I'm very employable these days. I'm probably a bit too strong-minded, um, and have my own viewpoint, so I don't think that I'd be a very good employee. So yeah, so then I started hunting down a kitchen and found a kitchen down the road which thought was going to work. That fell through. And at the time, it was a real blow, but I mean, in hindsight, it would never have worked anyway. So then I scouted out another kitchen, which happened to be the local village hall, and they had just put in a new kitchen. They had silver top worktops, quite a big oven actually, and then just ceramic hobs on top. So I thought it was going to. So I prepped and I got Asthi ready to launch. I got all my testing done, which was a whole other ball game because bone broth is a high risk product, so you have to get it all microbiology tested and shelf life tested. I had to get it all nutritional tested as well, and that all has to be repeated a couple of times throughout the year to make sure that you're not gonna poison anyone, basically. And I think the first lot of testing that I did actually it did fail. The first two lots failed. The first lot I did from my kitchen naively. The second lot failed. The third lot passed, but I had done the wrong testing, so I had to do that again. All the nutritional really good, and actually like for any powder that you can get on the market, and it's way more bioavailable for your body. So much better. Um, so yeah, I prepped Asthi, got all my labels done, obsessed over my labels, my website, got everything up and running, sent bits to friends, well, links to friends and family so that they could order. And Facebook groups are amazing as well. I found that when I was advertising for my yoga, I posted on Facebook groups because it's free, and I did the same with Usty, and that was amazing. So in my first week, I think I had a 50-50 split between people I know and complete random. And then so I had all these pre-orders. I had about 30 liters of pre-orders up and running, up waiting to go. So I did my first week and lost that batch. So I actually made 40 liters to make sure I had enough. Lost that batch primarily because the oven didn't work well enough. It did work, but it just didn't roast the bones because it's just not a commercial oven. And that meant that the broth was just didn't have enough time to simmer, and it wasn't good. And it also, because I didn't have a blast chiller or anything, I couldn't cool the broth down quick enough. So I sent an apology email out to everyone and said, look, I'm going to go again next week. So I lost the rent on the kitchen that week. I lost 40 litres worth of ingredients that week. I lost a day of my life that week. I remember it being a right slog and crying on the phone to my mum saying, oh, what do I do? But there was no way that I was going to send out that batch because it just looked grey and watery and horrible. Um, so yeah, so then I sent out an apology email and tried again the following week. Um, I implemented a few things. So I made an ice bath so that I could cool down the broth quick enough. I got there earlier so that I had more time to roast the bones, and it just still wasn't. It just wasn't going to work. I'd outgrown the kitchen before I'd even started, which is quite cool, but also very stressful. So then I had to send an email to everyone, and I said, "Look, um, primarily I said this because I had no money. I had spent the income from everyone buying the broth on pre-order on ingredients, which is a great way to start because it meant that I didn't have to ship in that much capital to get going initially. But I'd spent it all. I didn't have any money to refund anyone. So I sent an email saying, look, you can either keep your investment in Usty and I'm going to hunt down a kitchen and get you your broth, or you can have a full refund. And one person wanted a refund, so that was pretty cool. So then I was hunting down a kitchen, and throughout all of this, there's a farm shop cafe down the road, and they had very kindly huge chest freezer. And I went round when the kitchen had failed, probably looking a bit upset and sad, and said, look, is there any chance you can keep hold of the freezer? I'm going to hunt down a new kitchen. And they said, yeah, come and look what we're doing. And they were building a prep kitchen around the back. And I'd sprung up quite a good relationship there. I'd gone in quite a lot. I'd held a couple of yoga brunches there. So I had this sort of relationship with them anyway. And so yeah, then last year just spent a year with the kitchen, waiting for the kitchen to be finished. And in that year, I went on the hunt for a grant because I needed bigger equipment. I needed a bigger brat pan, which is what I use now. It's basically like a big commercial slow cooker. I needed a blast chiller so that I could chill down the broth really quickly, and that's really important for the microbiology aspect. And I needed a fridge big enough to hold all the broth overnight and the bones. So I managed to contact the East Sussex Growth Hub, and I had a meeting with a guy there, and he told me about a rural business on that was coming up that week, and there was a 200 grand pot in it, and I got in there quick, and I actually cocked that grant application up a couple of times. They were very patient with me because I changed my mind loads on what I wanted. I wasn't quite sure if I should just bootstrap it, get something cheap and cheerful, and just make it work, which is what I ended up doing, or if I should make the most of this grant and get an all singing, all dancing piece of kit. And the grant was a 50-50 split. So I had to put in 50%, they had to put in 50%. So my parents, the bank of mum and dad, lent me the Growth Hub's 50%, and I put in my own cash 50%. So that was a massive, massive lifeline because it saved me a heap of money. And I do wonder if I would have gone or bought a bit more on it now, but hindsight's a great thing. And I also probably wouldn't have actually, because I needed to see if this was actually going to work, if this was actually going to be a business. And there will be another grant at some point at the right time, or something will happen to enable me to level up again. So, so yeah, whilst the kitchen at the farm shop was all being fitted out, I was sorting out this grant, and then the money came, and it all got approved, and had managed to find a really good supplier for the kit up north, and he was really helpful. And he actually had the brat pan on hold for several months, whilst I had the grant approved, because I couldn't buy anything until the grant was approved, so I couldn't put any money down or anything. So he was really kind and helped me out. And he actually said that he started his business up with grants, so he knew what it was like. So there's very kind people out there along the way. So yeah, I got this grant, got all my kit, the kitchen's finished, and managed to set up. And I did a 2 week soft launch in December, the last couple of weeks of December. I called it a soft launch so that if all went tits up, I could say it's a soft launch. Don't know what I'm going to say now. Um, and those 2 weeks were really good. Long, like making broth is a long, long, long day, and I'm hoping I'm going to be able to make it a bit more streamlined. And it is getting quicker. Like bottling was taking me hours to do. Roasting was taking still quite a long time. I think I figured out a way around that. Um, and it's giving me ideas for the next stage of growth and my own and stuff at some point. Um, so yeah, the 2 weeks went really well. I did lose a batch. I think the second week I lost a batch. The first week went really well. The second week I lost a batch. I managed to get all the broth sent out to the people that waited as well. And several of those people have ordered again. And I've given them 20% off for 12 months to represent the 12 months that they waited. So that's quite cool. And it's actually really cool having your own business and being able to make those decisions. Like, if you were perhaps in a bigger corporate, they would have said, "Oh, give them 20% off their first order or their first month or whatever." I've given them a whole year, so I'm really pleased about that, and I've had people use it, and I've had two of those people start up a subscription as well, so that's all really cool. And then I shut down over Christmas because delivering over Christmas would have been an absolute nightmare, and I probably will do that every year because Royal Mail, that's another story. And then kicked up again in January, and my first week, I think I sold about 12 litres in my first week, which was fine. I did really don't, and I still don't want to go like explode quickly. But I definitely didn't want to in that first week. And that all went really well, and I stocked my first wholesale in that very first week as well. So I had D2C orders and wholesale orders, and that initial wholesale order came from marketing in my local butchers. So my butcher has been incredible throughout this whole process, and he's been giving me bones left, right, and centre. And he was gonna take broth to put into his butchers, but he's only open 3 days a week for half days, so he was a bit worried about being able to sell it. So he said that he'd put my bottles empty on the counter and with a couple of cards. And the owner of the farm shop that I went into the butcher's and saw my bottles and said, "Oh, my wife is really into all of this. You must get me, Steph, to go in and contact them." And so yeah, so I went into the farm shop, and they've been amazing because they've already been bought into the product. They've been amazing at selling it their end, and they've been stocked for 2 weeks, and they've sold out every week. And last week they had someone call up from Tunbridge Wells wanting them to save a bottle so that they could drive over and pick a bottle up. So that's quite cool. Um, Maybe I'll find somewhere in Tunbridge Wells. Mm. And then the other wholesale that I went into last week was a big week. I sold 33 litres last week, and I made 30 litres. So that was fun. So I had to shift a few people around. Um, and I like to, with the wholesale guys, give them a free bottle so that they can take it home and taste it, because I think that's really important. So I couldn't do that last week, which is a shame. But the second wholesale that I went into last week, I put up a post on Instagram, and they messaged me just saying, "Why don't we have your broth?" I said, "I don't know. I've never heard of you." Well, I had actually heard of them. I'd seen them on Instagram, but I hadn't never been there or anything. Um, so that's good. They didn't have a great week on their first week, which is a shame. And I actually took some of their bones. They've all got lovely organic practice, grass fed cows and sheep and pigs, and I took some of their bones to put in the broth so that they were selling something with their product in it as well. They actually said they had their quietest January day ever, so that's a shame. Um, them seeing that Isfield sold out, they increased their order. So yeah, that's a real shame. But I'm trying to see if there's a way that they can heat up the broth and put it in an urn and sell it to people from the farm shop by the mugful, so then it doesn't get wasted. So yeah, last week was a big week and it was good. I had 6 bottles in be delivered to Essex. I had 3 subscription orders, and then the 8 bottles at one farm shop, 6 bottles at the other farm shop, and then the rest was all D2C, repeat orders and completely new people. So that's really cool. So yeah, this week's a bit quieter. I kind of like seeing a bit of a trend where people buy and then they need the time to drink and use, and then they buy again maybe a week or two later, depending on how they're using it. I mean, if you're having a mug a day and drinking it like that, then you're going to go through a bottle a week, if not two, depending on how big your mug is, of course. But then if you're using it in like recipes, you might be using it every now and again. You might be freezing it. So yeah, that side's a bit tricky to gauge people. But I'm now redundant if I didn't say it at the beginning. So this is full time.